I'm pleased to welcome you to another edition of the program Flipside. My name is Daisy Obaise. I'm your host on the show today. Alright, today we're talking about something that is really important, and it's something everyone needs to give attention to. Children are very dear to our hearts. They are our future, and if we don't take care of them properly right now, we're going to have a very difficult future ahead of us. And that is why education is very key. Education is important to every child, regardless of whatever circumstances they are in right now, where they live, what they're doing, even if they have a deformity or not. And as it's also a right to have quality education, not just education like that. But it will shock you to know that Nigeria, according to the most recent UNICEF report, records about 13.5 million students who are out of school, or 13.5 million children who are out of school. Now, I'm talking about children between the ages of 4 to 14 without primary education. And that's even more painful because in Nigeria, primary education is officially free and compulsory. So what exactly is going on, and why do we have this surge? It's a huge increase. In sub-Saharan Africa, we're the highest with the percentage of children out of school. In the world, we're the highest. In the world, we're recording about 21 million children out of school, and we're saying more than 10 million of that number is from Nigeria alone, and 60% of that 10 million is from the northern part of the region. Well, we're talking about out of school children on the rise and the socio-economic implication of this on Flipside. Today I have a guest who will be talking about this with me, but you're going to keep your dials locked. We'll go on a break. When we come back from that break, you will meet my guest. In fact, we'll go on a break and do It's About You before we begin to talk, so we just know we'll get that out of the way. We'll be right back.
Belly fat is an excessive fat in the abdomen and around the stomach. It looks odd when you wear tight clothes and causes embarrassment. In fact, it's difficult to lose flaps from the belly region. Many people try to lose belly fat by eating less or famishing themselves, which is not at all a good idea and may result in several harmful side effects. The worst part is that the dream of getting flat and slim stomach remains elusive even after taking exercise and a healthy diet, because we, out of sheer ignorance, make many mistakes which shatter our dreams of getting a flat stomach. But worry no more. The healthy way to trim down your tummy is to use natural home remedies. The first thing to do is to change your feeding habits. Banish all junk food from your diet and stick to a healthy diet. Junk foods like pizza, burger, noodles, processed food, and fast food like soft drinks, fries, and pastries have a high caloric value and are too unhealthy. Reduce sugar intake, beers, and carbonated drinks. They cause bloating. So, for getting flat stomach, you have to stay away from them. Reason being that most junk foods are laden with high amounts of processed carbohydrates and sugar, the main cause of bulging and fat tummy. Banish all junk foods from your diet to lose weight from the stomach and to get a flat tummy. Now that you have banished junk from your diet, replace them with healthy food and vegetables. We can afford to make you hungry. Eat more raw foods like fruits. You will find that they are so much tastier and satisfying than cooked food. It detoxifies the body, makes you feel light and healthy, and over time you won't even feel like polluting your body with unhealthy food. Let your diet include watermelon because it contains 82% water, which helps your stomach not to crave for food. Watermelon is rich in vitamin C, which is beneficial for health. Cucumber also could be included. It contains 96% water and 45% calories. Add cucumber in your diet as a salad or eat raw cucumber to get a flat tummy now. Avocado is another useful fruit for burning excess fat. Avocado is rich in fiber and monounsaturated fatty acids. Use avocado to replace margarine and butter. Another thing is avoid fried foods. But if you must fry your foods, go for oils with high concentration of monounsaturated fats MUFAs like soybean oil and olive oil. Let your diet include nuts rich in fiber like walnuts, peanuts, and almonds. Still talking about your feeding habits. Stop eating late at night as it causes accumulation of fat around your belly. Try to eat at least 2 hours before you go to bed to keep the stomach fat away. Avoid overeating. Large meals put a lot of load on the stomach and intestine. It reduces your digestion. Chances are that a lot of food will be stored as fat instead of used for energy, especially if you are not physically active. Eat slowly and chew each morsel well. It will control the amount of food you take and make you feel satiated early. You must follow this tip to lose fat from your belly and get a slim, flat stomach. Away from your feeding habits, drink lemon juice. Lemon juice on a daily basis will definitely reduce belly fat soon. Add lemon juice in a glass of water, a pinch of salt, garlic, and ginger. Stir it well. Drink this every morning in order to reduce belly fat. Green tea works as a detoxifier which helps in burning the excess body fat. Consuming green tea daily will also make your skin glow as well as make your tummy flat. You should also drink plenty of water. Water helps in reducing weight. Drink at least 8 glasses of water a day. This will not only flush the fat, but also make your skin shiny and glowy. Your hair will become healthy. In fact, your whole body will become radiant. After doing all these, you can take exercise to reduce stomach fat and tone up the abdominal muscles. Taking exercise is the best way to tone up your stomach muscles and lose weight quickly. There are several sets of exercises that will help give you a flat tummy and a toned up ab. Exercises like squats, sit-ups, dancing, crunches, and running on a treadmill. Or better still, contact a gym instructor. Don't forget, your feeding habits is the major cause of pot belly. Change your feeding habits and see a positive result. Your body is your responsibility. Take good care of it.
Alright, education is a big deal, and that's why on Flipside today we decided that the person we're going to bring to talk about this very interesting and very important topic is a professional, and that's why I have in the house today Professor Osamide Omogiwa in the house. Good to have you on Flipside for the first time. And he's a professor of education from University of Benin. You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so now UNICEF has brought out a report. It's been UNICEF's report of our out of school children for a couple of years now. Let's say since 2000 and since 2009 to about 2015 has been 10.5 million. We were used to the fact that this is a big number, it's so huge, it's sad, we have to look for some way to change this report, and we were cool with that fact. But right now, this is 2019 and we're hearing 10.5. That's real big, and it's too much of an increase. I'm just thinking, were you worried about this figure when you saw it?
Well, everyone should be concerned, but then again, there's a need to spread it out, to find out if you say 13.5% or whatever that range as the dropout rate or the out of school number of children in our country. Then we know that there are different regions or states.
Yes.
And we talk about the north, the south. So we need to, because the situations are not exactly the same.
Yes.
And the reasons why children are in school or out of school may not exactly be the same.
Okay.
We know that there is a system in our country that is still on, it's almost like inherited from before we even became a country, the alimentary system, and it is not be done away with. So that can lead to an increase in number. So what are we talking about here? Is it was there any split? Can we? Okay,
according to their statistics, 60% of this number is from the northern part of Nigeria. Okay. Even though they did say insurgency was a major factor why there was an increase, it was also noted that we've always been the top in terms of out-of-school children even before Boko Haram came on board. So I don't want to say Boko Haram could possibly be the reason, because if we're going to blame it on insurgency, this present administration, which by the way was the previous administration, did tell us that insurgency in the northern region has really been dealt with and people are returning back to their communities. So by now we're supposed to be saying if there should be an increase, it shouldn't be this much. And the Amajiri system of education is not even getting as much of a boost as we used to have it when Yadwa formed this concept and Jonathan put a touch to it. This administration has not even given that much attention to the Amajiri education system, and we have less children learning even in the Amajiris from the information given. So it's even amongst that 60% in the northern parts, we have about 40% of them being the girl child.
Okay. So now you see the issue of children not being in school is a problem that the society need to consider providing a solution to. But again, it's the government that provides leadership. So it is the duty of the government to provide leadership. You see, I'm not sure that our government considers that a problem at the moment. Reason being that these figures that you have shown are international figures. UNICEF do not just generate figures. They are products of research. And because they are products of research, we cannot begin to challenge them. There's no reason why they will generate figures that are not true. Yeah. So I think the government of our country, first the federal government, should have a policy and be willing to pursue it. Then the state governments still have a responsibility in this matter. And now, from what we are talking about here, I'm sure we are really concentrating on the primary schools. Yes. And if we are concentrating on primary schools, then the local governments are the ones that have the greater responsibility in this matter. And what should they do? You see, if you go to our schools, I'm talking about the public schools now. Yeah. Good enough, there are a lot of private schools, everywhere. Even though we can also question the quality of some of them. But at least they keep children in school, and the basic things that they are supposed to learn, I think they are still making efforts to do that. But in any case, if you go to our public schools, overcrowding is there, and the facilities are not good enough. So what we think is that from education, I am sure that I'm sure not just me thinking now. I mean, some other people are interested in education, particularly even at that lower level, are beginning to think that there is need for there to be a kind of commission by government. Every local government should have, aside from you say, okay, you have a section dealing with education, particularly on ensuring that children are in school. You see, no matter how good the system is, the monitoring of the system will determine whether the system will succeed or not. Children will be walking around during school hours. Nobody talks to them. Everybody walks around as if it is normal. It's not supposed to be so. There are societies where by 9 o'clock, if any child is not in school, when he should be in school, then there are people who monitor such children. Now, I think the issue of guidance counselors in schools to make sure that students see school as they should see it, and if they have challenges, it's also important. So there should be guidance counselors in schools, and there should also be social workers in schools, attached to schools, who work not just in that school, but in the community, to find out why a parent will not allow a child to be in school when the child should be in school. I know that the issue of child labor is also there. Some parents are distressed. Some children have to go and sell some things because to help in encouraging or to help in to support the family. But in any case, it should not be during school hours. There should be. But I think the greater issue here is that the problem is there, as it has been identified.
And it has been for a very long time.
It has been there for a very long time. But there should be deliberate efforts. And if the government is not also making move in this direction, a program like this should also begin to expose the non-governmental organizations to begin to think and say, what do we do?
Now, it makes me wonder if this administration is even ready to tackle this issue. Now, before the school feeding program came on board, we had about 10.5 million children out of school, and then the school feeding program was introduced, and government reported to us in 2018, that we now have 8.5 million children out of school. So there was an increase in enrollment of children because of the school feeding program. If last year you were telling me that you've got an increase with this new platform you thought was going to curb this problem, and this year, just a couple of months after you have been assured that it's working, UNICEF is telling me it didn't just work. In fact, things are worse. I'm afraid I don't know what other programs they're going to introduce. But I'm thinking 60% of these people, these children between the age of 5 to 14, are from the northern parts of the country. And in the northern part of the country, when you talk about power, they're very, very, they're really interested in power, political power. They don't joke with it. And the future is in the hands of these children that are not getting education. What does that portend? What does that tell about the future of Nigeria in another 20 years?
Well, you see, I agree that there are enough children not in school. We are not going to close our eyes to the fact that there are so many children in school.
Okay.
But not to say that we are going to ignore the fact that there are some children not in school. Every section of the country is interested in the politics of our country. And this country is not governed by any set of people. It's all of us involved. And there may be some persons who may, from some sessions, who have the notion that they have to be close to the corridor of power. But it's not always so. It's a big country with various people, and it is good that we all know that we are all in government, and we must see it as that. Having said that, I think the issue of children not being in school, and there are more of them, and then you also brought the gender dimension to it, that there are more girls out of school. Of course, there had been that tilt against the girls in areas that are easily considered disadvantaged. Reason being that the desire they have is that the girl child will go get married and will not bear the family name. All those issues are there, but with more education, people overcome that. But let me tell you this. You see, I think there are no structures in place to ensure that children stay in school. And there's a matter that I also want to comment on, the school feeding program. The school feeding program, the purpose, if it's part of the purpose that they'll keep children in school, that is not the primary purpose of the school feeding program. It's to improve the nutrition of the child that is in school so that he can learn. Because if a child is hungry and he's in school, he cannot learn. You understand that? So if the focus is on ensuring that children are well fed and they are able to go to school, then our country should begin to think of, our government should begin to think of developing a kind of social program to reach out to those who are deprived. On the average, no parent in his or her right senses will want the child out of school. Everyone knows the value of school and schooling at the moment. It's just that some may be deprived, and because of that, they would rather that they go the other way, or they look the other way. Of course, we say our schools, the public schools now, are tuition free. But we are not operating free education in the strictest sense of it. We have a tuition free education system. The children still have to buy their books. The parents still have to buy books for their children. Still have to buy uniforms. Still have to buy shoes. still have to contribute one way or the other to the upkeep of the school. I know that there was a governor who insisted that teachers must not, the school through PTA must not collect any money and others.
Yes.
But we also knew that most often than not, the facilities needed, the basic facilities such as writing materials, were not provided. So, I mean, trying to say that we were helping the parents, I think the issue is this: the level of poverty is still too high, and there's no effort. A country as rich as our own, it's a rich country because the resources are there, but we cannot say rich yet because the resources have not been turned to wealth. But yet, potentially rich country we are. You find out that until, as a country, the ideologies that will promote taking care of the future generation is born, you find out that we are still going to find this. You see, your children are your children. That's the way it's seen now. The country do not see children as the country of the children of our country. The parents see that is why you find out that parents who are well-to-do, in quotes, particularly those who are already in the middle class, they take their children to private schools, and you only have to listen to the amount of money that are paid in these private schools.
Alarming. A
lot of money. And then you now find out that if the public schools were running properly, if there was a kind of education task where everybody that is working will contribute, and then it's for the purpose of ensuring that the schools are well kept. Look, seriously speaking, maybe sometime you should take your cameras to the schools and see that the schools are not schools really. I mean, particularly the public schools. The facilities are not there. It's overcrowded. If a roof is leaking, I mean, the rains are getting here now. The children will have to be parked somewhere. So and then I know that when we talk about keeping children in school, the strategies that governments and the society, I won't say government now, it's as if everybody explains themselves. Let's say the society will have to do is to ensure that there's a monitoring system when our children are supposed to be in school. Any child that is not in school, why is that child not in school? There should set up some kind of monitoring authority.
Then what kind of punishments will be meted on the parents or the guardian of such parents? Because if the punishment is not big, we don't fear.
I think the issue is not punishments at the beginning. You see, we should not be seen as being punitive, as if the parents hate their children. No, they don't. We should find out what problems the parents have. It's when the parents, after the efforts are made to keep the children in school, are not cooperating. That's when we talk about the punitive measures. The first step is on how to enlighten the parents and let them know the value of education, and then encourage them to allow their children to be in school. But if a child is not in school and then we trace it to the parent can be sanctioned in the first instance. Say, well, we record it. Your child, why is your child not in school? You find out the parent may have a problem that you need to solve. Oh, I couldn't buy uniform for the child. I couldn't buy any of the books, and teachers say you must bring these books, and that's why the child is not there. So it's more than, it's a problem that needs special attention, where as a society we begin to see all children as our children, because they are the future, they are our future, and want to defend our future, not just to defend our own children alone, the one that is our biological children or the one we have adopted, but every child. It should be a pain to the parent, to any parent, to see that, oh, my child is in school, and yet this child is moving about when the child is supposed to be of school age.
Okay, now, one of the major reasons people went to school in time past was because of the socio-economic benefits attached to education. You go to school, you graduate from school, there's practically an already made job waiting for you. You're going to work for government, you're going to get a loan to buy a car, a house loan, and eventually when you retire, you get pension, gratuity, and all sorts of things were attached to it. But right now, I don't know if there's even enough encouragement for people to go to school. Yeah, we have more graduates every year than the year before, and there are no jobs increasing. So what will make me want to go to school as a street child? What's the encouragement? What's the motivation?
Well, you have touched a very important part of the discourse that should be on in our country today. No jobs. Well, I'm not surprised that there are no jobs. You know why?
Why?
All the cars that are moving on our streets, no one is made here. No one is assembled here. This is a television house. Every gadget or equipment that you are using, no made in Nigeria. We have faculties of engineering. Why are they not even talking about that when they campaign to us? Their interest is, I'll give you roads, I'll give you water, I'll give you light. No, we need industries, manufacturing industries. Until that happens, unemployment will be here. How many persons can government employ? A lot of those who are working in government institutions, well, sorry to say, but that's the reality. Many of the parastatals and institutions in our country that the government has have staffs that are almost redundant. There are people who just go there, they sit all day, nothing to do really. Because we want to reduce unemployment, so government try to employ as much as they can. But in any case, if you want to solve unemployment in our country, then we must be industrialized. That's the only way out. We must move from the traditional way of just cutting and pasting to doing things. I want to look around and say, yes, this is made in Nigeria. I have a little daughter who is only 6 years old, and she's so concerned about when you buy a gift for her or give her anything, she look, made in where? And I don't want to say, but I need to say, made in China. I say, Nigeria is not making anything. If a little girl can begin to think like that, that's what tells us that we must begin to think well. Everything made, before you see made in Nigeria, it's difficult.
Yeah, almost everything right now we use is made in China because it's also cheaper. And the time the federal government did try to encourage made in Nigeria rice, you know what happens? The rice in the market, the price increased. Even the made in Nigeria rice was expensive. It's still expensive. The thing has refused to become cheap ever again. But we have a long way to go, and maybe eventually we'll sort it out. The program is Flipside. We're talking about out-of-school children on the rise and the socio-economic implication of this. The figure right now is about 13.5 million children out of school in Nigeria alone. We're the highest in sub-Saharan Africa. We're the highest in the world. We're beating countries where there's even serious, intense war. And I don't know what we're going to do about this, but before we leave here on Flipside, I'm sure we would have proffered as much solutions as we can. The program is Flipside. My name is Daisy Obaisiago, and I have a professor of education from the University of Benin in the house with me. And we're talking about the increase by UNICEF on out-of-school children. Now, it's moved from 10 million, 10.5 as at the time of the former administration to 13.5 million, and if we're not careful, it's going to keep rising. Meanwhile, the SDG target by UNICEF is by 2030 there will be no child out of school, and this is 2019. We have 11 years to reach that target, so it's a big and it's a serious matter. Now, every government that comes into power seems to develop a strategy on how to ensure that children are in school. The ones in school stay in school, and the ones out of school come into school. Registration into schools should increase. But what exactly is the problem is that after this administration leaves, the next administration comes on board and they bring out a whole new plan, a whole new strategy. If it's not going to, if it's feeding this administration, maybe the next one will say it's free water, and then the next one is going to come and say it's free uniforms and all of this. But what can we do right now to put down these systemic barriers that are hindering the implementation of effective education strategy and make it transcend beyond the regular 4 years to 8 years to 16 years to 32 years, and it just goes on and on? What can we do to make sure that this stands?
Well, I think the first thought that must come to mind here is that governments will come and governments will go. But there should be ideologies that transcends government. And what we don't have now is such an ideology. All children should be in school because all children are valuable. And the children who will be quite useful to the society may not necessarily be those born by those who are rich in the land. So the child of a very poor man can become the one that will solve a problem that will get the country to a better position. But are the ideologies formed? You see, the governments that come, they seem to be living by the day. They want to survive their tenure, and it shouldn't be so. You find out that in most developed countries in the world, once a policy is established, that policy is pursued, irrespective of which government is there. Why would any government want to say, we want to feed children? Of course, there's malnutrition in the society. A lot of children of the poor are not able to feed well. So it's good to feed children. But that should not be the reason to get them to be in school. That's another thing entirely. So if you want children to be in school, first and foremost, we should consider the facilities in the schools. Can these facilities interest the children? Because there are some children who register in school, who are not in school, that their parents don't even know are not in school, because they are not enjoying school. But let that be out of it. But we need to establish, or first of all, formulate a policy, and then strategy to execute that policy. And then there should be monitoring bodies set up to ensure that that policy is followed. I wouldn't want to say this here, but in any case, we have a national policy on education. At the moment, very few states are running these policies. Many of our schools don't even have primary 6 anymore. Every child is now a genius. They jump from primary 5, some even jump from primary 4 now to the secondary school. There's no need for all that. Nobody's monitoring that. Of course, the new system says you are going to be, the first certificate you get is the first 12 years, 6 plus 3 now. So it's the first 9 years in school. That the primary school certificate is not the minimum certificate that is required, that is not required with the new system. But many of the children are jumping. I don't know why they are jumping. So I don't understand. So there should be a policy. We want to get our children to school. This problem that UNICEF has not identified, the problem has been there, we know it's there, but they have brought more light to it. This problem that is now open to us all, how do we solve it? Government has its part to play, the society and the leaders in society, even our religious leaders should be involved. The non-governmental organizations should be involved. Everyone should be involved. They say, well, this is the problem that we have as a country. How do we ensure that all our children are in school? Now, except for a few public schools, most public schools are not where you want your children to be. You understand that?
Yeah.
So, it's not just to keep them in school, we also want them to learn. How do we make sure they learn? If the school is interesting, children will want to be there. Sometime when there's a long holiday, children begin to ask, when are we returning to school? Because they are tired of not seeing their friends, of just playing at home. They want to return to school. So that's because the school is interesting. So I think where do we start from becomes the issue.
Yes.
We have always said government, of course. Leadership has a lot to do, but the government is not the only leader in the country. We have leaders everywhere. So if the government is not able to address it, when we say the government, now mean those who are seated in positions of authority in our government, then maybe we should begin to think of how the non-governmental organizations and the religious leaders, our people are very religious. So if we are able to get the religious leaders to champion this cause, I'm sure that even some of the religious leaders will be willing to contribute to ensuring that children are in school. So maybe what we start from there is, if we can get government involved to set up a body. It doesn't necessarily have to be a body, it could be a body of volunteers to monitor children being in school.
Religious bodies now getting involved in education matter is a bit dicey, because when we talk about the Islamic, you have the Muslim school, the Quranic schools, the Amajiri, where we have a lot of Muslims involved, and then we find that most of those children are actually the beggars on our streets. And then you talk about the Christian education, it's quite expensive. It's like the most expensive in Nigeria right now. So religious bodies getting involved, I don't know how that's going to work.
Yes,
I don't know how that's going to work.
Yes, well, what you have just said is the reality on ground, as it were. The purpose of the Muslim or the Muslim schools is not to get people to the streets. We know it is centered on getting the people knowledgeable of the religion. But again, I'm not sure they forbid other training in other areas.
Yeah, they don't do much of science.
So you see, if you look at it, the figures we use today, they are Arabic figures. They are not figures from Europe, or the closest to it is the Roman figures, but the Arabic figures. So that's to tell you that the Arabs had a good civilization before this modern civilization
came about.
So it's not as if their schools are not. And then for the Christian schools, I mean, the reason why they may be expensive as it is that they want to try and mirror quality. You get it? They want to try and mirror quality. Teachers are reasonably paid compared to what is being paid even in government schools, in some of these, in quotes, Christian schools.
Okay. Now, let's talk about, we're talking about children who are out of school, while they're out of school, how we can bring them back to school. Yes, fine. But even the children in schools today, by the time they're done with grade 6, primary 6, that's what we use here, many of them cannot read, both from the government's schools and the private schools. By the time they're done with primary 6, you give them books to read, and you're amazed at the fact that they've just spent more than 6 years in school if they started from kindergarten, and they cannot read. So what can we do to also ensure that it's not just about education, but quality education?
Yes, I want to say that maybe there will be need for more studies to be done before we can make categorical statement concerning private school children not being able to read. We know that there are different categories of private schools anyway. The ones that are of high quality and the ones that are almost, sorry to say the word, mushroom. But even then, those, in quote, mushroom, they make effort to make sure they study. And the children there still do learn some things. And then after 6 years, a lot of them are able to read. But from the public schools, there may be some children who are not able to read when they finish. Reason being that there don't seem to be any monitoring. It's a question of if you are going to be ready to, like, maybe I'll use this Benin adage, so the children in the public schools, there's no control. I don't know whether the teachers have lost the drive,
or they
are too much for them.
I think they're overworked.
The teachers are overworked. On the environment, you see, the environment have a way of encouraging people not to be serious about what they do. You get it? If you go to an environment that is not well kept, the likelihood that you will put your best in is little. But so our school environments need to be addressed. If we are going to talk about children being able to leave school and be able to achieve the purpose of being in school, one, the school environment is important, and then the teachers. The teachers should be happy doing what they do, and if the teacher is overworked, there's little the teacher can do. Okay,
I know the good, you've already classified the private schools. The good, let's say the good private schools are looking for ways to create, give them more creative and child-friendly learning environments for the children. And all of those, yes, but in these schools, some of them do not flog, but some still do. But in government school, flogging, oh yeah, you have to be flogged. They use this method of fear to correct children and to instill discipline. they might not necessarily flog you, but they threaten you. I'm just thinking, it's not really related to this, but since it's education we're talking about, as a professor of education, do you think this method of fear to teach children, correct children, and work on a child's character is effective, or is something we should disabuse?
Well, our society is a very religious one, so you permit me to also make some religious statements.
Oh, go ahead.
People can easily relate with that. The mind of the child is stupid. And only the rod of correction can put it right. Now, the rod of correction, does it mean a cane? Or does it mean words? Or does it mean denial? These are the issues. The child needs to be corrected. Part of any good training is chastisement, when you have to deprive of what that person should get. Or sometimes, when it is extreme, there may be need for some physical contact. But it must be done in love. You see, the idea of trying to reason with a child when the child is not ready to submit to the authority that is in place is an error of research. Psychologists have considered the child as matured in reasoning, to be able to reason with an adult. The child cannot see a lot of things the way you see them. Like you tell a child, tomorrow is school, 8 o'clock you should be in bed. The child doesn't see why that should be so. Even though the next morning, if the child sleeps late, the child will not want to wake up early. You understand that? And then there's no question about it. If you have said it by 8, the child should be in bed, you tell the child, go to bed by 8. And if the child is going to refuse to go, if you compare the child by holding the child in the hand and taking the child to the bed and say, well, bedtime, I don't think that is out of place. And if there is need for you to take a cane to hit the child, but let it be out of love, not out of anger, not out of hatred. The impression that when you use a cane on a child, it's as if you hate the child, or you are, well, let us not begin to compare how we bring up our children here. Well, we may not have a developed economy, but that doesn't mean that our children are not better brought up than the ones in the so-called developed economies. The children there, they do not have, they have not been well brought up, and that is why if you see the kind of things they do, they tell you, after all, I'm not 18. A 16-year-old child already knows that I will be freed from the law because I'm not 18, and that child is doing a particular thing, involved in a sin or whatever other crime, and yet the child says, you know, I'm 16, I'm not of age. Of course, if you already know that you shouldn't be doing that, then you're of age. So, but what has not been, what is there is, we must take it. Disciplining the child, if the child, it should not, the beginning should not be flogging. I mean, that is not it. It should be an extreme condition. Just like I told you, a parent that is not allowing the child to go to school, the first point is not, how do we punish that parent? No. What is the problem? Let's try to understand the problem. But if you try to understand and you try to reason with the child and the child is not ready to listen, then you must subdue the authority of that child. Because, like I said before, the mind of the child is stupid. The child cannot reason like the adult yet. When the child grows up, under good environment, we now begin to reason well. The reason is, if children are not well brought up, that is why they grow up and they can't reason properly. Like now, it's a pity that the problem of our country is leadership. And the reason is, not many of our leaders have been well brought up. Sorry to say that. Reason being that we are practicing democracy. Those who are in positions of authority should love democracy. But we see the election season, and we hear people talk about don't sell votes. Who is going to buy votes? If not the leaders. It's not those who are contesting who are going to. Tell them not to sell. Tell them not to buy. There will be no seller. Sorry, tell them
not to sell.
Not to sell. There will be no buyer. No, we are telling them not to sell. We are telling the people, don't sell your votes. Tell the leaders not to try to buy the votes. If there's no offer, nobody says, I have a card, I have a PVC, and I want to sell it. No. People come and say, whatever, vote for me, I'll give you this or do. It shouldn't be so. So what are we talking about here? The children being in school and disciplining the child is good. But if you must use the cane, it should be out of love. Okay. No parent should cane a child when you are angry with the child. No parent should be excessive in caning a child. It should not be as a way of showing that you are the parent. No, it should be out of love. Let the child, you see, if a child is even flawed out of love, by the time the child finishes crying, the child comes to the parent. The child even comes to the parent to pet that child. So if your child becomes angry with you after you have flogged that child, then you have missed it somewhere.
Okay, now we're talking about 13.5 million children out of school, and we've flipped sides, and we've told you, we've offered everyone as much solutions as we can to ensure that these children get back to school and stay in school. We've talked about strategies, policies, and also learning friendly environment for kids to stay and learn, and the classrooms, the teachers, the equipments, and all sorts of things. But while you're going to have your last words on the show today, Professor, I would want you to just quickly address government and other private establishments who want to go into education for children with learning disabilities and children who also are natural have other physical disabilities that make them not get education where the regular kids are. Because now we're talking about 13.5 million. A lot of people would not think about children with disabilities or learning disorders. So maybe just say something quickly on that, and then we'll call the show a wrap.
Well, it's the same problem. The same policies that need to be established to enable those who can attend, in quote, the regular schools, and those who attend the special schools, is supposed to be part of the policy. Every child has something to contribute to the society, and if the society is not able to harness what the child has to contribute, then that child is going to become a problem to the society, and the society will have to face the music. So I would advise that the government and the non-governmental organizations and also religious bodies and anyone who has, and today the social media is there. It should not just be for the purpose of entertaining ourselves and all for the purpose of trying to run down some groups. No, it should be for the purpose, we should also use that for the purpose of developing ideologies, a thinking pattern that will provide solution, and then those in authority will even see it. You see, it is possible now, because of the social media, to drive ideologies, but let it be on a honest basis. Let it not be politically motivated or sectionally motivated, and you find out that over time we'll be able to learn. But the immediate problem as it is, government must have to sit up and think of a way around this problem of out-of-school children. And the reason why these out-of-school children may not be getting the attention it deserves is because there are enough schools that are housing the children of the leaders of our country, and so they don't know that such problems exist. So, but now that a program like this is bringing into the know, I think governments deliberately must make an effort to lead us to solve this problem.
All right, thank you, Professor Mogiwa, for being on the show today. And it's his first time on the show, but I'm sure it won't be the last time we're going to have him on Flipside. Today we have about 13.5 million according to UNICEF's report for 2018 into 2019. And that's alarming because we're the highest in the world. We're talking about a society where government had told us that they've been dropping out of school children. That's just about 2017. And then Now we're hearing that there was actually no drop. In fact, there was an increase. We all need to put our hands on deck, because if we do not invest in our future, then we plan to have a very terrible and very risky future ahead of us. In a society where mediocres and people who are uneducated are given so much respect and so much honor, it will make a child, as little as you think that child is, wonder why he or she should go to school and begin to work for someone who is a thug. Now, let's get our priorities right. Let's invest in the right things. We need to start from even the budgeting, I would say. UNICEF says, or the UN says, 26% of your budget should be for education, and we're still talking about 6%, 4%, 5%, 7% at this age and stage and time. Really, we all need to buckle up and work on this. All right, my name is Daisy Bice. I want to thank you so much for being on the show today with me. You're going to get the videos on YouTube from this evening, so you can just check on Flipside, or you go to independent television. You see all of our programs for today, even news, and you can watch whatever you want to watch. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up, like the videos, subscribe to our channel, place your comments there, and we will definitely reach you. Or you can personally follow me on YouTube as Daisy Rich. That's my name, Daisy Rich, and you can get videos as well. Thank you and bye.